Welcome back. You're watching France 24 and it's time now for Media Watch, our daily review of the international stories creating the most buzz online. Rebecca Bowring joins me now in the studio with more. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Lana.
And we start with really the scandal of this beginning of the year, the much discussed phone hacking controversy. There are some fresh developments involving another former News of the World editor whose words are coming back to haunt him, it seems.
Certainly are, Lana. Let's go straight to the computer because we're talking about one Piers Morgan. He's very well known for being the judge of Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent. He's, of course, now on CNN. He's an evening show host there. But he's also well known in the UK for having a background in journalism. He was indeed an editor of the News of the World, and he was an editor also of the Daily Mirror. Now, he's been, we could say, under fire. Certainly there's been some controversy surrounding practices that may or may not have been used during his watch at those two papers. He's been denying any links all week, but now an audio tape has come to light that could put some pressure on him. So we're looking here at the influential Daily Beast website. Morgan admits dodgy practices, it says. In fact, he was featured on a BBC 4 radio programme called Desert Island Discs, which was a long-running show back in 2009, and presenter Kirsty Young asked him a couple of difficult questions about his history. She said, what about this nice middle-class boy who would have to be dealing with essentially people who rake through people's bins for a living? Talking about the gutter press, as it's known. She said, people who tap phones, take secret photographs and do all that nasty down in the gutter stuff. How do you feel about that? Now, in response, Morgan said most of it wasn't done by his journalists themselves, but he certainly didn't deny that there had been some rather circumspect practices around at the time. Let's take a listen.
A lot of it was done by third parties rather than the staff themselves. That's not to defend it, because obviously you were running the results of their work. I'm quite happy to be parked in the corner of tabloid beast and to have to sit here defending all these things I used to get up to. And I make no pretense about the stuff we used to do. I simply say the net of people doing it was very wide and certainly encompassed the high and the low end of the supposed newspaper market.
That really does seem like a pretty stark admission there. He's definitely not denying it.
He's definitely not denying, but if you go to the Politico website, they're saying there's, in terms of a smoking gun, it's a little bit weak because he doesn't actually implicate himself. It does show, though, that at the time, 2 years ago, he was quite happy to talk openly about what seemed to be a common practice. This is before the tide of public opinion, certainly in Britain, turned against the practice of phone hacking since Millie Dowler, where it was discovered that Millie Dowler, the teenager who was killed, had her voice messages hacked. It sounds, though, in the quote that like he could be talking about private investigators, the third party, and this would tally with something that The Guardian was reporting on just a couple of days ago. A City Slicker reporter who had worked for the Daily Mirror called James Hipwell, he claimed that phone hacking was widespread, and he actually offered to give information to David Cameron's public inquiry about that. Now, Morgan, unfortunately, has been getting himself into a bit of trouble, a bit of hot water on Twitter.
He's very active on Twitter. Has he reacted directly to these accusations?
He certainly has. He's reacted several times just today, but he's also found himself in the midst of a bit of an argument, we could say, with quite a high-profile blogger in the United Kingdom. I'm just scrolling down to find a couple of the quotes that he's actually said that I'll make no further comments on this Hackgate nonsense and calls them lying smearers. Let's look at his foe, Guido Fawkes. Now, this gentleman, he has been mounting a sort of one-person crusade to get Morgan held to account for everything that's been going on. And he points out on his blog here that Piers heard their tears. He mentions a dispute that was listened in on at the Daily Mirror between Sir Paul McCartney and Heather Mills. So he says that, and he says that essentially journalists were listening to the conversation and laughing at it in the newsroom. So he certainly believes he's got plenty of dirt to dish on this particular gentleman. And finally, if we have a look at the blog here of Roy Greenslade, he is a media commentator who writes for The Guardian, and he talks about an interview that Piers Morgan had with Naomi Campbell, of course, the supermodel, back in 2007, in which he says he doesn't consider phone hacking as serious as bugging somebody's house. And Greenslade says that Morgan's record as editor was marred by ethical blemishes, and he says that CNN should really have checked that out a bit more carefully before hiring him.
Well, it certainly seems like one of TV's biggest stars of the moment there is in some serious
rolling and rolling,
hot water. It's really the scandal that keeps on giving. Thanks very much for being with us, Rebecca Bowring. That was Media Watch on France 24.